What's up everyone, Gushy here and welcome to the channel. In this video, we're going to be going over all the skill trees in Horizon Forbidden West. Unlike the previous title, we have 6 new skill trees, all which gives benefits to drastically different playstyles. So we'll be going over them and I'll give you my opinions on which one might be the best. Before we start, if you guys liked this video and found it helpful, please drop a like and check out our Horizon Forbidden West playlist, which you can find in the description below, where you'll find videos on guides, breakdowns on game mechanics, and all things Horizon Forbidden West. So the first thing I want to do is explain the different types of nodes in each skill tree. First being a passive boost, which is basically just a boost to your stats. Next we have our active skills, and these are kind of like your add-ons to your already existing skills. This can range from an extra attack for your combo string, all the way to gathering more resources while looting. Next we have our weapon techniques. Weapon techniques unlock a whole nother ability for a certain weapon. A couple examples are making weapons explode, firing multiple shots at once, or providing an extra status effect. Finally, the most important is the Valor surges. These are kind of like your ultimate abilities, which when charged up should give you a major advantage in battle. So with that out of the way, let's dive into the skill trees. To go through these skill trees a little faster, we'll just be going over the active and Valor surges and then grouping all the passives together. First up, we have the skill tree of the warrior. This is really focused on melee abilities and others which support close quarters combat. For all you players that really like melee combat, this is the tree you want to look out for. Starting from the top, we have Resonator Blast, which is an active skill. This ability provides a really good hybrid attack style, as once you hit a target with a melee attack, the next shot with your bow will do a large amount of damage. There's other perks that really take advantage of this, so definitely keep this in mind. Next we have the Nora Warrior active skill. This just adds an additional melee combo, but what's really important is that it knocks down smaller machines and staggers larger ones. If the machines are similar to Zero Dawn, staggering enemies is a huge benefit, especially since a lot of machines move around really quickly. Next we have Block Breaker, which is another active skill. Again, this is an active skill and I think it's made specifically for human enemies, as I don't think the robots have a guard. For our first Valor Surge, we got Critical Boost. For each Valor Surge, we have 3 different upgrades, which I'm guessing as you level up will increase the stats, in this case for critical hit chance, critical hit damage, and critical strike damage. This is probably one of the best Valor Surges, as hitting crit shots is one of the fastest ways to take down enemies. Next we have an active skill called Aerial Slash or Jump Off. Again, this supports the hybrid playstyle, so it's faster to do your Resonator Blast. Finally, we have our first weapon technique. A lot of these weapon techniques either take up stamina or more ammo. In this case, we can fire 5 arrows in a horizontal spread and hold it longer to have a tighter spread. This gives you the ability to shoot special arrows. Once you melee the enemy, it will explode and deal extra damage. This synergizes perfectly with Resonator Blast, as you have a perfect game loop to both do extra damage while meleeing and using your arrows. And then we have another weapon technique called Burst Fire, which you can quickly fire 3 arrows in a quick burst. Moving on, we have an active skill called Half Moon Slash. There's 2 effects that really intrigue me. One, it closes the distance with a quick strike. This should make spacing a lot more forgiving. And then the secondary effect of this skill is that you can connect or break out of combos. If I'm understanding this correctly, this is an animation cancel, which if I'm right is really important, as you can quickly use this to get out of combos, some which may have longer animation times, and maybe dodge out of the way or start a new attack. And then we have our other Valor Surge. At base, it increases your melee damage by 100%, so fully upgraded, I'm really excited to see how much this can do. Next, we have an active skill called the Destroyer. This is another combo that you can do, which will deal a massive amount of damage. Next, we have another active skill called Spinning Scythe. Again, this gives another combo to do a powerful AoE attack. Then we have another active skill combo called Energy Surge, again supporting our Resonator Blast, which will quickly energize your spear with a powerful attack. For our passives, we have 4 nodes which will increase our Resonator Blast damage, 2 which will give increase to our light and heavy attacks, another 2 which will increase our damage for a critical strike, another 2 which will increase our energized duration, another 2 which will increase specifically our power attacks, and finally another 2 which will energize your spear faster for Resonator Blast. Alright, next, moving on to the Trapper skill tree. This skill tree is all about traps and specializes in weapons like the Tripcaster and Ropecaster, which will tie the enemies down. First, we get a Valor Surge called Elemental Fury. This will bolster our resolve and increase the buildup of elemental attacks, as well as giving us slight elemental damage resistance. Next, we have a weapon technique for the Tripcaster. This lets you shoot one shot and automatically sets 2 poles for the trap, so you don't have to shoot twice. If you really like the tripcaster, this is a really important technique to get. This will literally half the time it takes to set up your traps for your tripcaster, so you can do quicker burst damage. Our next technique is called penetrating rope. This is for the rope caster, and it makes it so that you don't have to draw the weapon fully to tie enemies down, and it goes through armor. Something really interesting is that it doesn't use up any ammo, but instead depletes medium amount of weapon stamina. For our second Valor Surge, we have Trap Specialist. This mostly just gives a buff to our trap and tripwire damage, as well as the elemental effects and the knockdown power. For our passives, we have 2 nodes which will place traps faster, 2 nodes which will have you recovering more high quality resources when deconstructing, 2 which will help you craft faster, 2 which lets you set down more traps, another 2 which will have you taking less damage from your own traps, and 2 which will have food effects lasting longer. Next, for our third skill tree, which is the Hunter. If meleeing is not your forte, Hunter skill tree is probably the one that you want to go for first. This gives benefits to the Hunter bows and the bolt blasters. This skill tree also has the most weapon techniques, so definitely this is one of the skill trees you should be leveling up first. For our first technique, we have High Volley. With this, you could rain down arrows, which honestly I don't think is that good, as you can't hit crits, and it takes a significant amount of time for your attacks to hit. Next, we have Spread Blast. This is for your bolt blaster and lets you shoot 8 bolts of your currently selected bolt blaster. It is a short range spread, so I'm not really sure how safe this weapon technique will be later on in the game. For our first Valor Surge, we have Ranged Master. This is a straight up buff to your ranged damage, but a really cool thing is that it will recover health per hit. Our next technique is Triple Notch for the Hunter bow. This will let you load up 3 arrows. If you combine this with a crit shot, this will do big bursts of damage. Definitely a perk to get when you have the chance. Next, we have Sustained Burst for our bolt blaster. Now this one's crazy. It unleashes your entire clip of bolts, but will leave you immobile. The caveat is if you are interrupted, it still depletes all of your weapon and a significant part of your weapon stamina. For our next Valor Surge, we have Power Shots. This will give you an increased damage for your bow, your bolt blaster, ropecaster, and spike thrower. This is limited to a certain amount of shots, so you will have to make sure that you hit your target. Next, we have an active skill called the Workbench Expert. This will have you crafting ammunition at the workbench using less resources than if you craft it in the wild. Next, we have a weapon technique for the Hunter bow, which is Knockdown Shot. This uses 3 arrows but will stagger or knock down machines. If you're going for a melee playstyle, this is definitely one to look out for, as you can stun enemies and close the distance. Next, we have Ultra Shot for the Bolt Blaster. This shoots an explosive bolt, which uses 10 bolts. For our passives, it's all about concentration and stamina. Some will increase our max concentration, decrease our depletion speed, increase our concentration recovery speed, increase our Valor buildup, increase our max stamina, some which will let you craft more ammo, 2 which will increase your heavy weapon damage, which usually drops from machines, and an increase to your stamina recovery speed. Next, moving on to the Survivor. This skill tree focuses on healing and techniques for your Blastling and Shredder gauntlets. For our first weapon technique, we have Bouncing Bomb. Each bounce that you get with the Blastling, with a maximum of 3 bounces, will increase your damage. Next, we have Triple Shredder, which will launch 3 shredders at the same time, so you can do more damage. For our first Valor Surge, we have Toughened. With this, you regain health every 2 seconds and get some melee damage resistance. Our next technique is Burst Dodge. This lobs a burst of bombs in front of you while automatically dodging backwards. Because the spread is pretty wide, you want to be using this in close range, which might not be worth the risk. Next, we have Shredder Mine. This is a cool AoE effect and will make it hover in place, dealing shock damage. For enemies specifically weak to shock, this could be a really good option. For our Valor Surge, we have Overshield. This is the effect that we got on our Shield Weaver armor in Horizon Zero Dawn, but I guess they just removed it from the armor and then made it a Valor Surge ability. That armor was pretty strong in the previous game, so I'm okay with this. Next, we have Sticky Bomb for the Blast Sling. This was really powerful in the last game, so again, definitely one to look out for. Next, we have an active skill called Plant Forager, which will have you gathering more resources from plants. Then we have Power Shredder, which will launch a special shredder which will do extra damage to a target. This actually looks really strong, but we have to see how much damage it does. Finally, for our passives, we have more healing and speed while using potions and berries, faster health regen when your health is low, an increase to range damage when your health is low, an increase to your melee damage when your health is low, and an increase to your defense when your health is low. You can also carry more berries and get more valor when you get hit. Next, on to the Infiltrator skill tree. This skill tree is all about stealth, and I think this is really important when going up against human enemies, as this will probably be most effective against humans. This skill tree also has weapon techniques for the sharpshooter bow. For our Valor strike, we actually have a cloaking device, which makes you invisible to enemies. With this, you get bonus damage to unaware enemies, but if you aim a weapon or use a melee attack, you will become temporarily visible again. For our weapon technique, we have braced shot. This will allow you to shoot a powerful shot which explodes on impact. Next, we have a weapon technique called double notch. This lets you load a second arrow for your sharpshooter bow, and again is really useful when getting your crit shots to do a big chunk of damage. Next, we have focus shot, which will increase your weapon's zoom and will do extra damage. For our final Valor surge, we have radio blast. This does a crazy amount of blast damage in a really large AoE. If you look at the preview, it has crazy range. We'll have to see how well this scales on larger enemies, but from this preview it looks pretty good. Now the passives for this skill tree are actually pretty impactful. We have basic ones which will increase your silent strike damage, increase your stealth range attacks, increase your stealth tear, which in most cases you do want to engage enemies with your tear to reveal their crit spots, so extra tear damage is always nice. On silent strikes, we can also heal ourselves with this passive, and then we have others which will have you carrying more smoke bombs, move quieter, reduce our visibility, have quieter spear or melee attacks, and increase our stamina and valor when you do a silent strike. I really think they added a lot to the stealth mechanics in this game, so I'm really excited to try some of these out. Finally, we have the Machine Master skill tree. This skill tree is all about the machines that you override, such as your mounts, as well as weapon techniques like the spike thrower, which are mostly used for large machines. For our first technique, we have Spike Trap. With this, our spike becomes a trap on the ground. We'll see how good this is, especially if it works on larger machines. Next, and I think the better option, is Propelled Spike, which can explode on impact or proximity to a target. For our Valor Surge, we have Part Breaker. This seems alright as it increases your tear damage as well as damage to component and weak spots. If we're hitting crits, this could be really good. Next, we have Splitting Spike. This is another one of those where you throw it and it splits into multiple projectiles. Again, because they don't go into one area, it's definitely less effective. The next, and I think one of the best in this skill tree, is Override Subroutines. After overriding a machine, you can set them to either aggressive or defensive. This really complements the stealth playstyle, as you can override multiple machines and then set them to aggressive so they start attacking each other. So this is something I'm really excited to try out. Finally, for our last Valor Surge, we have Chain Burst. This lets you chain damage from one enemy to another, all within 15 meters. The chain damage does 50% damage and is probably one of the better ones if you're going up against a group of enemies. So this is definitely one of the better Valor Surge options. Finally, for our passives, we can increase our override machines' defense, their damage, their health, their elemental damage. You can repair overridden machines, increase the override duration, and finally move faster while you're using heavy weapons. Especially if you knock off weapons from larger machines, which usually are really powerful. Moving faster with them allows you to get more shots off without using any of your weapons. With that, that's all the skills in Horizon Forbidden West. Keep in mind that as you level up towards the end game, you will be able to unlock all of these, so this is mostly a preview, so you guys can determine which ones you want to go for first. So let us know in the comment section down below which one you guys are excited to use. Thanks again for watching and hope to catch you in the next one.